Arianna, a big welcome to you as well. So, this is an important conversation because this was termed the Finance COP. So, can you give us a quick overview of your background, your organization, and what was top of mind with respect to COP29 in finance for you?
Thanks, Michelle. Hi, everyone, and thanks to Women in Climate for the invite and really indeed a very inspiring speakers so far there. So thank you so much for organising this great sort of platform to reflect a little bit on the COP outcome. So my name is Arianna Griffa. I'm a Senior Policy Manager at IGCC, Institutional Investors Group on Climate Change, and I lead our engagement with the global climate policy agenda. For those less familiar with the IGCC, we are a membership organization. We work with institutional investors, over 400 of them, across 27 countries and holding over 65 trillion in asset under management. My background is mostly in climate and energy policy, having spent most of my career working in the public sector and really trying to design and implement climate and energy policy programs to enable that transition. However, a couple of years ago, I came to the realization that even though policy is really important to achieve the capital that is required to shift towards net zero, towards a resilient and a nature positive economy, we do really need to mobilize the private sector. And this is really what we do at our IGCC. And this is why the private sector participation at COP was so important this year, the Finance COP. We were really trying to look at how the scarce public finance that is available for climate mitigation and adaptation and loss and damage can actually be used strategically to leverage public sector finance. And as I mentioned, investors hold trillions in our economy, but how do we ensure that those trillions are effectively going towards climate positive and nature positive investments? So this COP was really key in that aspect.
Great, Arianna. So, the Finance COP29, what were some of the biggest breakthroughs that could have taken place here, and did any of them come to fruition?
So yeah, as you mentioned, what was the Finance COP? There were a number of agenda items that were related to finance, but I would like to focus on probably the biggest one, which has been mentioned already, the NCQG, New Collective Quantified Climate Goals on Climate Finance, if you like acronyms. But I think it was very significant because it was since COP15 in Copenhagen where countries were called on to negotiate a new finance goal, namely a package of support from developed countries towards developing countries to tackle the climate crisis and achieve ambitious climate goal. So there was really an opportunity to really raise the ambition compared to the goal that was established at COP15, which many might know as the 100 billion goal. And really recognizing that there's much more than that developing countries need to achieve their climate ambition and respond to the climate challenge as well. Over the past 3 years, negotiators have been really spending a lot of time thinking about, not only how much money will be needed, but also how the money will be delivered, what will be the different options put on the table. And they've done an amazing job in the run up to COP29. But it was very clear in the first week at Baku that the sort of geopolitical context in which this COP was held was going to make it very challenging to come to a consensus around that. Given this geopolitical context, I think we can all agree that actually achieving that deal that we had at the end was significant, even though there was obviously some disappointment in the room, not just for the amount of money on the table, but also how it will be distributed. And I think from a private sector perspective, there was really a missed opportunity not to really strongly send a message to the private sector on how they can contribute and help mobilize and achieve the trillions that are effectively needed for the transition in developing countries.
Okay. Arianna, so quick last question. Out of a scale of 1 to 5, how did this COP do on climate finance, in your opinion?
So I would say probably 3, and I would like to distinguish the two types of sort of energies and positive outcomes that we see both inside and outside the negotiation rooms. There's been a lot of media attention about the fact that the private sector was not really involved in this COP, and this was actually not true. We've seen a lot of businesses and investors actively participating across side events, pavilion events, etc., and really discussing solutions. How are we going to mobilize that capital for the transition, really actively talking partnership and collaboration. But this was not really reflected in the negotiating outcomes where, unfortunately, the goal was much less than what was needed. But I think to close on a positive note, we've really seen some hope in the text, particularly in the announcement of the Baku to Belém roadmap, that the next presidency will pick up. And we really hold a lot of hope, particularly from the private sector communities, that the next Brazilian presidency will really hone in into the details on how we're going to get to that trillions goal and how we going to work with all stakeholders, all financial actors to be able to reach that gap. And
Thank you, Arianna.